Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Birds TV. This is Jeff Mosher and Adam Kaplan, of course, ITB TV, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. This is sort of an emergency podcast as it is 4 o'clock on Tuesday, and that means the Eagles have trimmed their roster down to 53. Some very interesting moves that we're going to get into and discuss. Adam, I got to be honest, I was ready to kind of have this discussion with you right off the bat about the wide receiver situation. And the news we reported earlier in the day on Twitter that the Eagles were releasing or parting ways with Travis Fulgham. But then the news came out, and something I did not see coming was also the parting of ways with Jordan Howard. I mean, he had established himself as the primary backup to Miles Sanders in camp. And, of course, Kerryon Johnson was already released. So we talk about roster tango, and sometimes you have to make moves of guys you want to keep, but you know other teams may not be in on. Does this feel like one of those moves to you where he'll be back? It's just that they wanted to create some space for some other guys?
You see, we're doing this live, so I could just give you my reaction. My first reaction is this is totally counterintuitive to exactly what happened in training camp. So, I mean, he's only making $990,000. When I say only, it's a lot of money, but
right.
I mean, they may look at it and say we don't want to fully guarantee that salary, but for him being on the roster in week one, okay. If that's why you're doing it and going to bring him back, that would seem the most logical decision move here. Because let's say, okay, he's off the roster. Let's look at it, right? Going forward, let's say they don't bring him back, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're back at the same. Let's say that, and remember we said this last year. They learned that Boston Scott cannot be the guy if Miles Sanders gets it. When I say that, he's not a guy who's a starting NFL running back who you're going to feel like, okay, he can handle 13 to 15 carries and be very successful. He handled it in double-digit carries, but he just didn't look special in any way. He looked very ordinary. They got Kenny Gainwell, and we'll get into the rest of the cuts. But this seems like to me that there's got to be something else coming here at running back. Either Howard comes back, or maybe there's someone else they like. And because I remember talking to the Panthers about a half an hour ago, they cut their number 2 back, Rodney Smith. That was a surprise to me. I know he's come back from an injury, but they have Chuba Hubbard, who they like, who's a 4th-round pick. He's very explosive, but they are kind of looking at who else is out there. So who knows? Maybe that's what they're looking at. But that was definitely a surprise.
Right.
I'll raise my hands. I am very surprised at that one.
I think everybody is. There was nobody I saw who even insinuated. And if it's out there, if somebody did a 53-man and put it out there and didn't have Jordan Howard on it, I tip my hat to you. Adam tips your hat. Congratulations. And I don't think anybody saw it coming. You look at where the Eagles went heavy and why they went heavy there, and maybe that'll help explain. Offensive line is where they went heavy. They kept several backups. Now, we talked in our last podcast. It was almost like I threw it in at the end because I forgot to mention it, that Brett Toth was going to make a serious push to make the 53. You and I were both hearing that, and he did. He made the 53, and it made expendable LaRaven Clarks, who got released. So your backup offensive lineman after the starting 5, you've got Andre Dillard, you've got Nate Herbig, you've got Jack Driscoll, you have Brett Toth, and I believe there's somebody else. I'm forgetting at the moment just because I don't have it in front of me. So it sounds like they kept 10 offensive linemen, right? Do I have that? I know I'm missing some.
So here's okay. We might as well just go through the releases, right?
Sure.
Just real quick.
Because we will get to the wide receiver situation. That takes a lot of explanation.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so here are the contracts are terminated. These are veterans. Andrew Adams, I had him on my 53, so I missed on that. I had LaRaven Clark off.
Right.
Now, I'm still surprised in that there's some guaranteed money here, but I didn't have him on there because it's funny. I had the 10 that I had on the roster are not the 10 that they kept. It's interesting how that comes out. Jordan Howard's the shocker. I got to admit it. I did see this a mile away. I never saw it. Hassan Ridgeway, we had heard very reliably less than 50-50 chance to make it. But here's the one. Richard Rodgers. It's because our guy Jack Toth made it. Jack Stoll made it. Yeah, right. Jack Stoll made it. This was our guy that we kind of were saying like he's had a great camp. He should make it. He did, and part of it is they gave him some fully guaranteed money.
Right.
The wave players were Raylan Arnold, Awoshika, Fulgham, Hightower, Jason Huntley, Jaquette, Craig James. That was the guy I had off the roster, and it has a lot to do. My understanding is his injury history. This guy couldn't stay on the field.
Right.
Matt Leo, Suopeta, not a surprise. Andre Patton, Pierce Bacher, the center, not a surprise at all. Elijah Riley, will get to him in a second. He was waived. I got to think he'll be practice squad if he doesn't get claimed. Jacoby Stevens and Raekwon Williams, Blake Countess put on IR. And T.Y. McGill, unfortunately, put on the COVID list.
Yeah, we will definitely talk about some of those defensive moves after we finish up offense. So I guess what they do is they keep 9 offensive linemen, if I'm correct with that, and they went heavier at tight end because Tyree Jackson obviously made the initial 53, and he'll go on IR most likely. So that means for now they kept Ertz, Goddard, Stoll made it, and Tyree Jackson. So 4 tight ends there. So we'll see. I think I agree with you. There's going to be some movement. I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Howard returned, or maybe a different running back that they may have their eyes on.
Although, think about this, though, because T.Y. McGill, okay, so T.Y. McGill is on a reserve list. So when he comes back, so here are the kind of situations they have to get through here. When I'm assuming they want to keep McGill when it comes off the COVID list. So someone's going to have to go when he comes back. So that's one move. Now, as you said, tomorrow, Tyree Jackson, technically 4:01 Eastern. Right now, they could actually put him on IR if they want to, but it won't count till tomorrow. So that would clear up a roster spot for McGill theoretically, or Jordan Howard. I'm just looking at, okay, so you said 10 linemen, right? Or 9 linemen. So
I think it was 9 in the end, right? Because you have the starting 5, you have Dillard as 6, you have Herbig as 7, you have Driscoll as 8, and you have Toth at 9.
And Dickerson.
And Dickerson, that's the one I forgot. Of course, the rookie Dickerson. So they kept 10.
That I had them for 10, but again, it wasn't the 10 that I thought. 8 I got right. It was Toth. Great call by you. I told you privately what I was hearing. He was, to me, based on what we've heard, I think this is sort of a conversation internally of, okay, as you pointed out, and a lot of people watched the game, saw against the Jets, they played him at guard. This is a Jeff Stoutland project. This is the guy that they were heartbroken when they cut him, and they were shocked that Arizona claimed him. Was it 2 years ago?
That was 2 years ago,
right.
Yeah.
They were like crying. This was like a Noah Togiai.
I was going to say he was Noah Togiai before Noah.
Part 1, yeah, part 1, right. So, okay. I hope Jeff Stoutland's right. We'll see. We'll see if if he ever has to play. But they love their versatility. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if he's right. He played well. I mean, the bottom line is they got rid of LaRaven Clark to keep him, and it's not like LaRaven Clark had more experience, but it's not like he was a standout offensive lineman in Indianapolis either. Here is an opportunity, which we talk about all the time, is to develop a player that you brought in. He wasn't drafted, but they brought him in. They have developed him under Stoutland. And I thought the tipping point was when you saw him play left guard against the Jets and hold his own there. That's when I started looking into it more and realizing that he had a real chance to make the roster. And we talked about that on the last pod. All right, time to get to this receiver group, because that was very interesting as things seem to change day to day going into it. First, I want to remind everybody, download DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the promo code ITB to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any week 1 game. That's promo code ITB on DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, so with the receivers, our last podcast, we talked about this bubble situation. We talked about the top 4 had been pretty fairly established. It was going to be Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Greg Ward, and Quez Watkins. And these, whether they kept 5 or 6 was going to be up in the air, and who was going to get the last spot or 2 spots between J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Travis Fulgham, and, of course, John Hightower. And I would, for those who've listened to our show, we've kind of outlined all 3 of them at various stages over the last year or 2 about what are the challenges facing each of them, because they're all different. In the end, as we reported earlier, they decide to cut Travis Fulgham. And the only thing that's shocking about it is when you look at it in totality, he was last year's leading receiver, right? We talked about he was on this team going into camp, what we said, unless he just falls flat on his face, which he absolutely did. He was given chances, and who could have seen that coming a month ago, right?
What I was just going to say, sorry for jumping in, but what I was going to say is it was 4 games, 378 yards. Yeah. And this was real. The tape showed it. It wasn't just numbers. Sometimes guys put up numbers that are not really real. I think what I said on the last show kind of summed it up. Let me find this. Our kudos to our IG team, our social team for Inside the Birds. They took my quote. Let me see if I could find it. But what I talked about was that he lost confidence. Like in fact, his last best practice, his last good football for them was not in the preseason game. It was last Tuesday's practice at the Jets. Like, he really played well. He did have a practice well. He had a drop, but he had energy, he had juice, he attacked the football. The next day he was so-so, and then he had the fumble in the preseason game. But as you said it, and you were absolutely right, he started. There was no question who the best receiver on the team was coming into training camp. In terms of guys who had done it before, it was Fulgham.
Right.
And then the steady decline. It was like, I don't think he had a good week since week 1 of training camp. And the final 2.5 weeks were dreadful for the most part.
Yeah.
He earned his cut. I mean, what else could you say?
No, all I know is, look, and this is something that you and I, we've dug in a little bit on this. We can say that going into Tuesday, right? So Monday night going into Tuesday, there was kind of discussion about who was going to make this team. This was a difficult decision for the coaches. And what it came down to, as we understand it with these three, was special teams, which is what the last spot on a wide receiver group usually comes down to. Travis Fulgham is not a special teams performer. John Hightower is only a returner, but they have other guys right now for kick and punt return. I mean, they've got Boston Scott, they've got Jalen Reagor, they have Devontae Smith, they have other guys who can do returns. You're not going to keep John Hightower simply for returning, not
Correct.
on the 53.
Correct.
J.J. Arcega-Whiteside this summer and in preseason has been playing on the core special teams units. In fact, after he made that touchdown catch, that nice touchdown catch from Flacco against the Jets, on the ensuing kickoff, he made the tackle. He also had another tackle on special teams, either against the Jets or Patriots. I can't remember which game. But when you talk about someone who's coachable, who shows up every day, he may not be the most talented guy. We know he's stiff as a receiver, but you're looking at special teams at that spot, and that's why J.J. Arcega-Whiteside prevails over the other two. I know, Adam, people are going to say it's more of a Howie Roseman doesn't want to give up on a second-round pick. Trust me, there's no glory when your second-round pick is the 5th wide receiver and he just barely beats out 2 guys to make it. And honestly, as we sit here today, I'm not 100% sure by 3 o'clock tomorrow that J.J. Arcega is still going to be on the team. I have no inside information about that. I just know that the Eagles are going to probably make some waiver claim moves, and there were some interesting wide receivers out there.
True.
But this thing did go down to the wire. I think that's important to know.
Yes. Here's what I said about Fulgham on our previous show. I don't think, this is my quote, I don't think he gets a roster spot. I'm not saying they feel that way. That's the Eagles. I can't speak for them, but what I meant was this is the information that we have. That way, but he's really fallen off badly. Fulgham's been cut 3 times in his career. There's a reason for it. He's really gifted, but obviously has issues where he just can't handle disappointment and so forth. That's the thing with this kid. We were told by multiple Lions sources that he would get down on himself so badly he almost became uncoachable with the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a push by the previous coaching staff, obviously they've been fired in Detroit, to get him off the roster. This is now the 4th time this guy's been cut. He's 26 years old. At some point, dude, you got to get it.
Yeah.
Being talented doesn't get you anywhere. You got to get it.
I know. Well, if this isn't the reality check, I mean, if the first 2 ones you can understand maybe not getting to him because he hadn't done anything, but if the way you played in the NFL last year for that 4-game stretch to go to being released doesn't get into you somehow and make you change, maybe you're not right for this profession. So we'll see. I suspect that the Eagles will try to bring him back on the practice squad, but this will be interesting. Hightower, I think they can do that. We'll see if Travis Fulgham clears waivers. I wouldn't be surprised.
He might be. It's right.
If another team thought that they had the magic formula to get through to him.
It's just that quarterback room. It's just Devontae Smith's a stud person and a stud player. Reagor, we know he had his up and downs in training camp, but he's super gifted. He just has to be more consistent. But he's going to play a lot. We know Greg Ward is high character guy, smart guy, former quarterback. He's I don't know that he'll be their main slot. He'll certainly play a lot of slot, but we know Reagor and Smith could do it. Quez Watkins he's in that rotation now with Fulgham off the roster. I don't think Arcega-Whiteside gets on the field, quite frankly, other than specials and maybe in the red zone because he's 6'2".
Right.
Quez is going to play a decent amount. Now, how much he plays with Fulgham off the roster now remains to be seen because we know Reagor and Smith got to play, but Watkins is not only earned his roster spot, he is super fast and explosive. He's built his body up a little bit. We'll see. We don't know how many snaps he's going to get. That's the thing. It's kind of unclear, but he earned it. He didn't do very well. What we heard in OTAs, but he sure got it going on in training camp. Let's see if he could sustain it.
All right. Before we move on to defense, I want to wrap up this receiver situation with 2 points. One, some people have said, I've just seen the reaction on social media, that they're surprised that the Eagles didn't keep 6 wide receivers, especially since they had a chance to develop Hightower on the 53 or even Fulgham. But I would counter that and say, if you're already struggling on who your 5th wide receiver is going to be, it is not sensible to take up another roster spot on your 53 with a guy that you are just not thrilled with, especially if you think you can bring him back on the practice squad. So I understand why the Eagles didn't keep 6. I think keeping 6 just to keep a number is not good business. Especially again, when you're just not even super psyched about receiver number 5. I mean, he's a disappointing 2nd-round pick that's just kind of hanging on here.
Do you think there's any way, like, I don't want to say the light goes on because he's a pretty mature kid. The guy was a second. Okay, the Eagles clearly reached for him, in the 2nd round. You and I have outlined this for people who have listened to us all the time. You already know about this, but for people who are new, we should probably mention this. What we had heard from other teams is 4th round, 5th round. Okay, the Eagles took him way too early, but they obviously like something on his tape. The catch radius, going after the ball, being physical. Is that? Do you think from what you've been I know you went to training camp more than I did, and you've seen him quite a bit. Is there anything in him that suggests, you know what, he was a little bit better? Could he help them at all? Do you think he could play game day and maybe give them something?
I think if he's put in the slot, there's probably a better chance for him to help them than as an outside receiver. If he has to play the slot because they have injuries and he's there, I think he can help you in 2 ways. One, I think he can catch passes across the middle in zones. Sit down in the middle of a zone, get the ball. He's pretty reliable as far as catching the ball. I don't think he drops a lot that I can remember. And 2, because as you mentioned, he's a stronger, bigger body guy than say a Greg Ward. You can probably run the ball out of an 11 personnel formation with him as your slot receiver because he can put a body on a linebacker. He can do a crackback block, on the backside there because he's got some body to him. But as far as can he help this team consistently move the chains, if he had to be like a number 1, number 2, or even one of those slots like Jordan Matthews, high volume slots, I haven't seen it yet, and so I don't think so. And that's why we're talking about him as a 5th receiver who's kind of lucky to make the team. And
that's why I brought it up because honestly, when you're at the bottom of the depth chart, you got to be able to play specials. And we know that what we were hearing is that had something to do with it. I think Howie Roseman actually confirmed that. He brought that up apparently to the reporters today, but I don't know. Go ahead.
I would say last thing is imagine if the Eagles had and maybe they'll do this, right? If there was a veteran receiver out there who could play a backup type role, doesn't mind playing special teams, they're out there, that was on this team as your number 4 receiver, right? That would push Greg Ward to number 5. And you'd probably feel a little bit better about your overall depth because if you get an injury, now you're your J.J. Arthega, as you mentioned, he's out there on the outside, or Greg Ward has to play maybe more than they would like him to. But because they're so young and inexperienced right now, you have a situation where Ward's number 4 and theoretically and Arthega-Whiteside is 5. But if you had a veteran, it would almost seem to solve all their problems, and you're moving on from J.J. Arthega-Whiteside like you did the other 2. So let's see what they do in the next 24 to 48 hours with the waiver wire.
Let's talk about defensive tackle because they did cut Hassan Ridgeway.
Yep.
McGill's not on the roster because he's on the COVID list. They cut Raequan Williams, correct? They did.
Yes, they cut Raequan Williams.
So what does this position look like? Oh, Tui Pelotu made it. Our Andrew DeCecco reported that a couple hours ago. Good for
Andrew.
I
wanted to give some credit to him on that. Yeah, Andrew DeCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. Probably his first big Eagles scoop that Marlon Tui Pelotu, the 6th-round pick, was making the team despite the fact, Adam, he did not have a good camp, did not have a good preseason. And I quote tweeted and said, well, maybe something's up, or what does this mean for Hassan Ridgeway and T.Y. McGill, not realizing that McGill was going to go on the COVID list. So this feels like another fluid 53 situation, doesn't it? Where he's on the team now, but you really can't feel great about your depth after Hargrave and Cox with rookie Milton Williams and rookie Marlon Tuipulotu.
I agree. That's another one where we could see some movement tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow is so confusing. I can't remember the cuts being done on Tuesday. So Wednesday, between 12 and 12:30, talking to some personnel people, that the waiver wire should run and the claims will come out. You'll see the reports and so forth. And then the practice squads, obviously, the practice squads get set for guys who are not claimed. So I would say right now, the Eagles, by the way, they only have 3 running backs on the roster for now, Sanders, Scott, and Gainwell.
Right.
I do wonder if they're going to do something there. Now here's the thing, another thing I have a question about. They held Jordan Howard out of the final preseason game, right?
Right.
What was the point? Were they trying to trade him? I just don't understand.
Well, certainly didn't showcase him.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I don't know. We'll find out obviously what their plan is for him, where they're going to bring him back or not.
Mm-hmm.
But they need a back with size, man. This as much as I love watching Boston Scott in training camp. I mean, I love that. By the way, that play against the Jets. Holy smokes! That fake jab step, and that was an awesome play.
Right.
But again, if you got to have an answer, if Sanders gets hurt, what is your answer? Is Boston Scott the answer? It just didn't work. He was just average. That you need more of an answer next year. If Sanders gets hurt.
Absolutely. And by the way, as we're recording this, I know Howie Roseman has said that they went heavier on offensive line, so they had to scale back in some other areas for now. So clearly he was asked about the running back situation. So he mentioned the numbers at the offensive line. So I would anticipate this changing before they go into the year, but you never know. So we will see.
Sure.
All right, go visit our friends at Deal Dash. Download the Deal Dash app and use the code ITB, and you'll get some bonus free bids, and you can start playing right away on the world's biggest online penny auction. That's promo code ITB. Register and get yourself some bonus free bids. So other than defensive tackle, which you're concerned right now with the depth, but realizing that there's probably more moves to come, nothing really at defensive end. That was surprising. They're going to roll with their 4 guys, Sweat, Kerrigan, Barnett, and Brandon Graham. And they obviously cut Matt Leo. He'll probably try to go back on the practice squad. Linebacker, I guess the surprise to me is I didn't see Sean Bradley make it.
Yeah.
He's going to make it. And so they went big at linebacker as far as numbers, right? Because they kept Patrick Johnson. They kept Jannard Avery. They kept Sean Bradley, and of course Alex Singleton and Eric Wilson. That's 5 right there.
I had 6. Yeah, I had it Avery, Wilson, Singleton, Taylor is 4, Edwards is 5, and
Davion Taylor. You're right. So they did keep 6.
Right, and then Patrick Johnson. But what they did was they kept. Wait a minute. Did they keep 7?
No, because they cut Jacoby Stevens, right? So
right, but they've got Avery as a linebacker, 1, Wilson's 2, Singleton's 3, Patrick Johnson's 4, Edwards is 5, Davion Taylor 6, and Sean Bradley 7. Correct?
Oh wow, yeah, you're right. They kept 7 linebackers.
Wow,
that's pretty amazing for this team.
I'm dumbfounded, folks. If you're watching, let me know if I'm wrong. I don't know I don't understand what.
Wow, how about that? How about that, man? Look at these day 3 rookies. Teron Jackson, we forgot to mention that as when I said pass rushers. Teron Jackson made it. He's the rookie 7th round pick. Was he 6th or 7th now? 6, right? Teron Jackson made it. Marlon Tuipulotu made it, 5th round pick.
Okay.
And Patrick Johnson, 7th round pick or 6th round. I forget, one of those 2.
6, yeah.
The 6th round pick, right? Obviously a heavy lean on the rookie class there. That's amazing to me. So
now it doesn't mean it can't change. Remember, as you said earlier, you're absolutely right. It could change tomorrow. So it's called the Flow of 53. There's going to be all 32 teams go through this. Stuff's going to happen tomorrow. You go, wow, okay, this guy just made it, and now we made the initial 53. Now he's cut tomorrow. That stuff just happens.
Yeah. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to guess that the Eagles will not carry 6 linebackers into the regular season, but you never know. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about safety. So Andrew Adams, one of their vested vets, is released. I think that probably indicates. Well, the surprising thing to me is not only was he released, but also Elijah Riley was waived as well. So really, that leaves them at safety with Rodney McLeod, Anthony Harris, Marcus Epps, and Kevon Wallace, and that's it, right? I mean, that's just 4 safeties. So Harris seems to. What's that?
No, I was just gonna say Harris, Wallace, who's had the 2 groin injuries in the same area, I think. Epps is 3, and Rodney's 4, right?
Yeah, 4 safety. So that indicates to me that they think Rodney can get on the field, or that there's going to be a subsequent move again at that position.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you got 2 of your 4 safeties are coming. One from major knee surgery, isn't practiced since last season.
Right.
And the other one has been nursing this recurring groin injury. I just don't understand. I don't know. We could see a lot of movement here. We'll see. I mean, the first injury report is not due till Wednesday. I'll be very interested to see who's listed on the injury report. My goodness. Wow.
I know. It's nuts because they also got rid of Graylin Arnold. He's the guy who plays safety and corner. So they can bring these guys on the practice squad and make them available for week 1. If that's part of the roster tango. You're on the practice squad, but isn't it the same rules as last year? You can kind of bring these guys up and then put them back.
I'm sorry. What was that again?
You can sign guys from your practice squad for a game and then revert them back to the practice squad. Those rules are still in place.
Yeah, same year, right? Yes, correct. Yes.
So this to me sounds like roster tango. Like they're going to try to bring either Riley or Arnold, if not both, back on the squad, and maybe they'll have them available for week 1 if McLeod can't play.
Yeah, I could see that. And again, it's a situation where they're trying to figure this out, kind of going forward, what it looks like with their injury situation. That's why I'm very fascinated to see when that first injury report comes out, around 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, who's listed on it. Because now they must list McLeod's on the 53. They got to list him if he's practicing or not, whether he's limited or full and stuff like that. Right. This has been a fascinating 53. I mean, there's some things that happen. I'm like, wow, didn't see that happening.
No, I agree with you on that.
Jordan Howard one to me is by far the biggest one. I just don't understand where they're going here. But we'll over the next 5 to 7 days, we'll see who they're running back. Whether they bring him back, if they bring him back, we kind of know it was just not to guarantee his salary based on what happened last year. He didn't look very good.
Right.
But Richard Rodgers, will he come back? And then the guys who clear, Craig James. Now, Craig James is a guy they've liked, and he's really a good special teams player. But again, he's not dependable because he's been hurt. Yeah. I do wonder if he clears, whether they bring him back.
So Josiah Scott did make it though as the 5th corner, correct? So McPherson is the 4th. Josiah Scott is the 5th.
It was a hamstring, by the way, hamstring injury.
Man, it's kind of crazy. Some guys were hurt; they're on the team. Some guys hurt, not on the team.
This is.
I'm going to be fascinated to see how this roster changes in the next 24
Exactly. Just going back to your days as a beat reporter for CSN Philly, and obviously you cover the team closely. Do you remember a fluid roster like this where you know that this is not going to stay the same? We know every team changed a little bit, but there could be, who knows?
No, but one of my career achievements that I'm very proud of is that I once predicted a safety to make the Eagles, even though he wasn't even with them in camp. He was with the Browns. His name was David Sims.
Oh, yeah.
And I predicted that he would wind up on the final 53, which he obviously was
cut
by the Browns. He wasn't he was not on the Eagles' initial 53, but the next day he was. So that was a nice little feather in my cap on that one. But no, it's this one. I think because of the way the team is in transition right now, I think there's probably more of an opportunity for them to look at the waiver wire, and it was an opportunity to keep some young players that they like the Patrick Johnsons and the Teron Jacksons and Marlon Tuipulotu for now. But then also take a look at the waiver wire and see what they can do there. And if something is good, great. If not, they can probably bring back some of these vested vets like Andrew Adams or Richard Rodgers. I would anticipate will be back, and maybe even Hassan Ridgeway if they want some depth at defensive tackle. Now, if you are a vested vet, Adam, when can they bring you back without a guaranteed contract? Is that after
Monday?
Week 1?
Monday next week. I believe it's Monday.
It used to be after week 1.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, technically, I guess after 4 p.m. Eastern on that Monday. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I'm glad you asked.
So not this coming Monday, but after the Monday after the opener.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So they would have to play week 1 without some of the guys without a Richard Rodgers or an Andrew Adams potentially.
Right. And yes. And so think about it. Okay, before we get out of here, here's kind of the way it looks right now. If they don't do anything, it's Sanders, it's Boston Scott and Gainwell running back. There's your rotation. This is without Jordan Howard. You've got basically receiver. You've got Rager, Smith, and Watkins as your outside guys. With Ward and Quez can do it in inside, and Rager doing Devontae Smith. So they're very young, but they're talented. They've got guys who could run, Rager, Smith, and Watkins. Okay, so they're young. I still think they need to add a veteran. We'll see if they do that. It's just basically someone who's done it before, kind of show the young guys how to do it, but so to speak. We went over the offensive line earlier. They have 10 right now. I would think they'd stick with that. Defensively, you just outlined the D tackle situation. That one's got to be improved. They're super deep at D end.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they have 7 linebackers, correct?
7 linebackers as of now. Excuse me.
It's ridiculous.
I know.
They're not a 34 defense.
We're going to obviously, our next podcast will drop Thursday, 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And by that time, the Eagles will have done at least 1, maybe 2 rounds of waiver moves, and we'll have a little bit more of the sort of final 53 going into week 1. But I want to get to just one more thing before we get out of here. So to our friends, make sure you go check out our friends at Sky Motor Cars. Go to skymotorcars.com. If you're selling a vehicle, they're paying the most right now for trade-in. So make sure you go check them out, skymotorcars.com out there in Westchester, PA. If you go take a visit, tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get the best deal. We neglected to mention some of the other move. Matt Pryor was dealt to the Colts in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Now, it was Matt Pryor and a 7th-round pick for a 6th-round pick, which we told you, man, that when you have an excess on the offensive line, you have an opportunity to make a move. So the Colts, who are really, really hurting and banged up on the line, get Pryor. And they get, obviously the Eagles get a 6th-round pick. They just gave one away for Gardner Minshew, so now they get one right back. But in general, Adam, for some of the guys who are on the 53 right now, Andre Dillard, Zach Ertz, Jannard Avery, anyone you think that might be still here in 24 to 48 hours or might not be here in 24 to 48 hours?
No, we were talking about Ertz last show. As I said, I'll take the loss. I got that wrong. I thought, like most human beings, he would be moved. During the draft, though. During the draft is when I thought would happen because they were trying. It just okay. Everybody wanted to move on. It didn't happen, and then he was available. And as I said, then after the draft, the urgency to trade for teams to acquire players, it dies. It just dies. And the Nick Vannett, you'd mentioned a couple shows ago, he's going to be okay, and so's Adam Troutman. He'll be back. The Saints hope sometime September. Mm-hmm. There were not a lot of tight end injuries. So again, the leverage that the Eagles had heading into the draft, it dissipated. Now, as I also said in the last show, keeping Ertz is smart in that they need veteran pass targets. They need proven pass targets to help Hurts out.
Right.
That is why you need him. And I know some people say, yeah, but do you want to be forced to play 12 personnel? I understand that. It's a very thoughtful belief. And we'd said this months ago, but you got to help the quarterback. You got to help him. This is Hurts deserves better, I think. He deserves to have veterans. And the only veterans they have are Ertz, or it's not technically a veteran vested, but he's been here on and off the roster since 17. They just they need guys who are dependable, and Ertz is dependable.
He is, but I really don't want to make this all about that. I mean, that they're keeping him on to help out Hurts. I think the bottom line is if a team called up Howie Roseman right now and gave him a day 2 pick, he'd probably make the move. If he gave him a 3rd round, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, if he gave
I get it. Absolutely.
I mean, he would do that in a heartbeat. So
of course,
I just think that's really the big thing.
But I don't think that the way that you and I have talked about this on our show, on the air and off the air, is that they never got anything remotely close to what they were looking for. Mm-hmm. And they were not going to give him away, and they just were not going to do that. I don't blame him. And then he walks next year and they get a compensatory pick.
But that's what I'm getting. What kind of comp pick do you think the Eagles, if he signs a 3-year, they get at highest they get is a 4th-round pick? They're not going to get a 3rd-round pick unless Zach Ertz gets 1,100 yards.
I'm sorry.
I mean, they're not going to get a 3rd-round pick for Zach Ertz unless he literally gets a huge contract.
I thought they can get a 4. I really did. I don't even know if they got that offer. I have no idea. And then the other thing is, we've heard conflicting rumors about what they were asking for.
Right.
That's another thing. So, bottom line, Ertz is on the roster. They'll have to make do with it. We'll see. We'll see if Richard Rodgers comes back. Jack Stoll was our guy. We talked early in training camp. They loved him. Mm-hmm. They guaranteed a decent amount of money. Right now he is their 3rd tight end. We'll see if that stays the same in a week.
Right.
So again, to end this, folks, this has been a crazy 24 hours. The rumors about who would be here, who not be there, we'll see what happens. As Jeff said very well, we'll see what happens in the next 48 hours.
All right, and we'll be there to update it all. Thursday morning, 6 a.m. is when the next Inside the Birds podcast will drop, and we'll have the latest on all the moves between now and then. So make sure you catch that pod as early as you can, because that thing could change even after our podcast, so you never know. Big thanks to our sponsors Inside the Birds. That's Deal Dash, that's DraftKings, and of course Sky Motor Cars. Big thanks to Jimmy Hayden at Rebel Hill Productions for helping us produce this live stream.
Thank you.
We will do another one next week, ITB TV, as we do every week. Hope everybody has a good rest of their week. For Adam Kaplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. You've been watching an emergency ITB TV live stream.